Minister Narendra Modi will be departing for a high-profile European tour that blends diplomacy, technology, trade and global leadership. From bilateral talks with French President Emmanuel Macron and a historic first-ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Slovakia to participate in the G7 summit and Europe's biggest startup event, the visit is aimed at strengthening India's strategic footprint across Europe. India has been invited as a partner country by France, which holds the 2026 G7 presidency. This will be India's 13th participation at the G7 summit, in that the Prime Minister will now be heading to. A visit that could further cement India's strategic, economic and technological partnerships with key European players and partners. As he mentions in a post on social media that the focus of the visit will be on boosting the economic and cultural linkages, the tour will begin in the French city of Nice, where the Prime Minister will hold bilateral talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. Defense cooperation, civil nuclear energy, critical technologies, innovation and regional security are expected to dominate the discussions. A key highlight in Nice will be the launch of Bharat Innovates, a flagship event bringing together startups, innovators and venture capital leaders from India, France and beyond. From France, the Prime Minister will travel to Slovakia for a landmark visit. This will be the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the country since the country gained independence in 1993. Talks with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico and President Peter Pellegrini are expected on the lines of trade, investment, renewable energy, mobility, railways and defense manufacturing. The next stop is Evian in France, where the Prime Minister will participate in the G7 summit as an invited leader. This will be India's 13th participation in the G7 and Prime Minister Modi's 7th appearance at the summit. Leaders will discuss global growth, international partnerships, critical mineral supply chains, and the responsible rollout of artificial intelligence. The Prime Minister of India could also meet US President Donald Trump on the sidelines of the G7 summit. If the talks materialize, it would mark the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in more than a year, coming against the backdrop of renewed strategic engagement, trade negotiations and evolving geopolitical dynamics. The two leaders last met in February last year when the Prime Minister traveled to the US. The G7 summit comes amid the war in West Asia and disruption in global energy supplies. The geopolitical conflict is likely to feature on top of the summit's agenda. And for the latest, our Foreign Affairs Assistant Editor Sidhant Sabol has sent us this report from the French border.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be reaching here in France in a few hours' time. Now, the focus in France will be in Nice for Bharat Innovates, at the G7 in Evian, and also in Paris, where the Indian Prime Minister will be addressing the diaspora. Now, France relationship is a strong relationship in every way possible: defense, space, technology, and the focus is how this relationship can firm up ties further at a time of great geopolitical flux. In fact, France has been playing an important role in terms of supporting India's bid for a reformed United Nations Security Council. The Prime Minister also travels to Slovakia, the first ever visit of an Indian Prime Minister to that country.